intelligent extraterrestrials?
Something I can't discuss in public setting.
Okay, I can't ask when you think this occurred. If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries, yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
And was this documentary evidence, this video, photos, eyewitness? Like, how would that be determined?
The specific documentation I would have to talk to you in a skiff about.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So, and you may or may not be able to answer my last question, and maybe we get into a skiff at the next hearing that we have, but who in the government, either what agency, sub-agency, what contractors, who should be called into the next hearing about UAPs, either in a public setting or even in a private setting? And you probably can't name names, but what agencies or organizations, contractors, et cetera, do we need to call in to get these questions answered, whether it's about funding, what programs are happening, and what's out there?
I can give you a specific cooperative and hostile witness list of specific individuals that were in those.
And how soon can we get that list?
I'm happy to provide that to you after the hearing.
Super. Thank you. And I yield back.
By the way, just a quick question. Aren't those people under oath? Like, if they lie, if they're caught lying, they can go to prison? Isn't that how it works? I'm just curious. I personally do think that this is legit, despite the fact that when you look at the comment section, you can see a lot of people saying, oh, it's a distraction. It's a distraction, chat. Oh, the White House. Look, every single day, there is something happening in the news. Like, if this was last year, it would have been a distraction from COVID. If this was 2 years ago, it would have been a distraction from the BLM, so on and so forth. Like, at which point, if this was real, would you think it would be okay for the news cycle to plug it in? Legit question. And also, it's the idea that the public cannot hold more than one concern in their mind at the time. Like, you don't know that there can be a war in Ukraine, there can be a food crisis, there can be inflation. Oh, and by the way, the government also knew about aliens. Like, isn't that too much to ask? That the person can hold many thoughts in their mind at the same time? What really bothers me about this, and this is what people should be talking about, instead of it's a distraction, is the fact that, like, a couple of years ago, the government trying to fuck with its citizens, that was legit, you know, like the X-Files made an entire show about that. However, if you talked about aliens, that was a conspiracy theory. Now, however, the roles are reversed. If you say that the government may have ill intention towards its citizenship, that is the conspiracy theory. If you talk about aliens and shit, that's fine. This is the point of contention that I have. It's who gets to define what a conspiracy theory is, and why is it dismissed out of hand initially? Also, I would like to point out that if this is a distraction, it's probably the worst distractions ever made. I mean, when I go on the street, I don't hear people talking about UFOs and stuff. You know, people still talk about the war in Ukraine, they talk about the economy. That's what they talk about. They don't talk about, oh my god, well, did you know that they found aliens? Maybe like in passing, like someone just wants to spark a conversation and they go like, oh, did you hear the hearing in the United States about the non-human biological pilots? And they're like, oh yeah, you know, that was interesting. Did they show anything? Nah. That's pretty much the extent of the distraction. So yeah, I mean, it's one of the worst distractions that I've ever heard. But is it possible? Yeah, I guess. I suppose that the reason people don't talk about it is that it doesn't really say how it affects your life. You know, like, for example, people probably wouldn't talk about climate change that much if the government wasn't talking about removing gas stoves and forcing people to buy electric vehicles and switch their house to electric, while the rich folk are flying with their private jets and they're taking their private yacht. Like, if that didn't happen, then no one would talk about it either, right? So, like, if tomorrow the government comes up and comes with like, okay, well, we need to pay more taxes for this alien investigative agency, and we need to make sure that you change your way of life by doing such and such, and we need censorship, then it would be an actual distraction. Like, then people would legitimately talk about this nonstop. But until then, I don't see why. And what's also interesting, this is actually fascinating, right? When the government was labeling everything that has to do with UFOs as a conspiracy theory, people were saying that the government is hiding something. And, you have the whole X-Files, as I mentioned, like, very popular TV show. It just goes to show that back then things weren't as censored as they are now. If you got, like, greenlit on an entire TV show that contradicted the official narrative. But, suffice to say, like, people were very upset. It's like, oh, well, the government is hiding stuff. Now that the government is revealing stuff, people are like, oh, well, the government is mischievous. The government is doing this as a distraction. Which, by the way, doesn't speak a lot about the people. It speaks a lot about the government. I mean, just how little trust people have in the institutions. If you have the scenario where no matter what the institutions are doing, like, people are incredibly suspicious. And by the way, this is a good thing. Like, this is an amazing thing. Because normally, right, like, people are suspicious of strangers. Like, if you see a stranger on the street that wants to spy on what's in our house, that wants to see what you post on social media, like, you'd be very suspicious of that individual, right? But for some reason, if that individual gets elected into office, all of a sudden all suspicions need to be dropped, and we need to consider them as our best friend, with the best intention in mind. It's like, I'm sorry, but no. No, absolutely not. So yeah, the fact that the universe is infinite makes it more likely than not that there are aliens out there. And yeah, okay, like, some of them may have visited our planet. All right. Like, do you want me to do anything about it? No, we're just telling you. Naruhodo. So again, I generally don't understand why people are like this in the comment section. Like, everyone is like, it's a distraction, it's a distraction. Are you distracted? No. Okay, why do you assume other people are? I love the idea, right? Because, like, the average Twitter commentator is more enlightened and more smart than everyone else. Like, they don't get distracted, but everyone else does. I don't think that's the case. I don't think people are getting distracted from this, honestly. It's in the news cycle. It will stay in the news cycle for maybe a couple of days, and then it goes away. Unless other things come up, unless they're like, well, actually, the aliens have a political agenda, and the government has conspired with them and stuff. Oh, okay, well, in that case, then it would actually be newsworthy. At this point, it's kind of like an oddity. It's kind of like, oh, look, we found the ruins of Atlantis on the seafloor. And I'm like, great. Yeah, okay. What you want to do about it? But anyway, let me know what you guys think. And as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.